Across the city of Kathmandu, people were preparing for their lunch when the earth began to shake. With its epicenter in the mountains northeast of the city, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck on the 25th of April 2015. Relatively shallow, nearby villages were reduced to rubble, whilst in the city itself, buildings came crashing down, sending people fleeing into the streets in fear. Initial reports put the death toll at around 1,000, but that number rose quickly. In the end, 8,000 thought to have lost their lives. Around 20 people were even killed on Mount Everest, over 140 kilometres east, as the quake triggered huge avalanches, the deadliest day ever on the mountain. The tremors even felt in India, Bangladesh and Tibet.
I feel like this is now a graveyard. This is where we played, where we grew up. Seeing all these temples destroyed, I feel so depressed.
The monuments that have been left untouched are very rare. This one you can't tell from outside, but inside it might be all dilapidated. This one, the big stupa, you might think it hasn't been affected at all, but if you go around it, part of it's damaged.
Well, perhaps the biggest symbol of the quake, the Daharara Tower, reduced from this to this. Elsewhere, temples and monuments, 180 buildings in Kathmandu in all destroyed, including severe damage to several UNESCO World Heritage Sites. After the initial quake came the aftershocks, over 120 of them in all, including a severe one 2.5 weeks later, which killed another 200 people. Well, since then, reconstruction has been slow, with many villages still in all but ruins. So what has life been like for those who survived and those who lost their loved ones? Well, our correspondents revisit Kathmandu for France 24.
A year later, Kathmandu still bears the scars of the earthquake. Life has assumed an air of normalcy, but the signs of large-scale devastation are everywhere. Testament to the painfully slow recovery process. We went back to Nepal to meet a soldier, a mountaineer, and a teacher. Survivors of an earthquake that brought a country to its knees. And through their stories, we find out how the people there are picking up the pieces. "32-year-old Lakshman BASNET from the Nepalese Armed Police Force led one of the rescue teams in the Nepali capital.
My wife was 3 months pregnant and I had to leave her in that condition.
While he was away, I couldn't get in touch with him on the phone. And then one day, I saw him on TV. I was scared at first. Anything could have happened to him. But then I was proud. He was a hero.
It was very difficult, but we successfully rescued many people. When we arrived on the scene, it was scary. Everyone was running around. It was chaos. Electricity wires were hanging down. People were terrified.
Lakshman and his team pulled out dozens of people trapped under collapsed structures strewn across the city. One of them was a teenager, PEMBA LAMA, who became a symbol of hope at a time of despair.
After searching for 5 days, we heard a voice. He was screaming. He told us his name was PEMBA. It took us 5 hours to rescue him. Can you move your hand? Please don't be scared. Don't fall asleep. Don't worry, everything will be okay. What were you doing when you felt the earthquake?
I was eating on the first floor. I ran towards the ground floor. Something fell on top of me. It hit me on the head and I fell down. I was losing consciousness. I tried to get up, but there wasn't any space. Whenever I feel shaking these days, I run out. I thought I would die.
PEMBA is now 16, lives in Kathmandu, and survives by doing odd jobs.
But I got lucky. Before, I used to be talkative. Now I rarely talk that much. Now I'm thinking that I'll go abroad. Depends on what work I get and where.
My name is Tahar Manaï. I'm 27 years old. I'm from Tunisia. I live in France, where I'm a professional fireman.
Tahar was at Everest Base Camp in April last year. He was hoping to become the first Tunisian to fly his country's flag from atop the world's highest mountain. But his plans were thwarted when an earthquake struck.
The ground is shaking.
It was a strange sensation when the ground starts to shake.
Oh!
At first, I thought it was a bad joke, a friend shaking my tent.
No! Fuck!
Quickly, I realized that it was something else because the shaking would not stop.
The earthquake triggered an avalanche that flattened the base camp, killing 21 people. But the tragedy has not deterred Tahar from his mission. And he's back in Nepal, more determined than ever.
It's strange to be going back to Lukla when last year I was trying to get out of there. There is still some apprehension, but it's a good thing. It proves that we're alive and that we escaped the worst last year. Welcome to Lukla.
Tahar begins his trek to Everest Base Camp, going down the same road he took last year.
We can see some of the consequences of last year's earthquake, which brought down some very big rocks.
Chinchi Sherpa's house was one of the many that came down in the quake. She spent this past winter without a roof over her head.
Namaste. What happened last year? Did you lose everything?
After the earthquake, people living here had to flee. There was no place for them to stay. They didn't have the means to rebuild their homes. So people from the US are rebuilding them.
She's one of the lucky ones. Most of the others who've lost their homes across the country are still waiting for aid to get to them. The international community pledged $4.1 billion to help Nepal get back on its feet. And it's taken the government almost a year to begin disbursing some of that money.
Thank you.
Coming back this year was important for me.
Thank you. Namaste.
The people here need the money from tourism to live, so it was important for me to come back to the Nepali side to get to the top. The Everest is the stuff of legends, the roof of the world. It's like playing with life and death. You enter a zone, in which after 8,000 meters, things are harder to control. Every breath matters, every step matters.
How are you, my friend? Very good? Good. Fine. Fine, and you? Nice to see you. Yes, I think.
This man was Tahar's guide on the mountains last year. His life was also spared on the deadliest day in Everest's history.
Nima and I were at base camp when the earthquake and the avalanche hit. So we were very, very lucky, the two of us.
Really happy to after this earthquake. Yeah. To lucky man. Yes, yes. Less tourists? Yeah, this year less tourists. Really less? Yeah, yes. Less. Less than last year. Yes, you think how much percent? I think 25%. 25? Yeah. Or not 15? No. Not 15? No. 25%, I think. And climber less? Less, yes. Okay. Less, also less.
Meditation to combat the trauma inflicted by the earthquake. We're in Sindhupalchok district, to the northeast of Kathmandu. The area's proximity to the earthquake's epicenter meant that it was one of the area's hardest hit. When this school suffered crippling damages, the principal, Rajalakshmi Shrestha, had to find funds on her own to get it up and running again.
The walls were solid. They fell apart. There were computers, racks, everything was destroyed. We had so much stuff, nothing was saved. If the ground shakes again, make sure to leave everything and run out. After the earthquake, they were so scared. They didn't want to come back to school.
Even the sound of passing cars sometimes scares me because I think it's an earthquake.
It was a Saturday on the day of the quake, so students weren't at school. They were at home. There was a power cut, so they couldn't watch TV. They were outside, working, collecting grass, wood, or playing. If they'd had electricity, or if they'd been at school, they would have died.
Around 900,000 Nepalese lost their homes in the earthquake. And so did Rajalakshmi and her family. For 10 months now, she's been living in a makeshift shack with her husband, and her youngest daughter visits often.
During the winter, it's too cold, and during the summer, it's too hot. There's no ventilation, so it's very difficult.
She forks out 16 euros a month for this flimsy structure.
I never imagined in my wildest dreams I would live in these harsh conditions. I used to read about it in books, but I'm living in it now. We're almost at my house. When the earthquake hit, there was no space here to walk.
In her old neighborhood, it seems like the earthquake struck only a few weeks ago.
I'm making a new house here after it was destroyed in the earthquake. Here's my kitchen, bathroom. We've spent 3,000 euros on this.
The government promised 1,700 euros to each eligible family for reconstruction. Rajalakshmi hasn't seen any of that money yet.
Lots of money came in. Where's it gone? I've lost all hope. I don't think I'll get any money anymore. I feel a lot of despair, but I do look on the bright side and think, at least I still have my family.
Nepal is one of South Asia's poorest economies, and getting back on its feet was never going to be easy. And the recovery has been further hampered by bureaucratic delays and political turmoil over the country's constitution. At this army camp, Lakshman is training with his disaster management team.
If another disaster were to occur, the armed police force is prepared.
This will bring little comfort, however, to those in this landlocked country who are still waiting to rebuild their shattered lives. It's the resilience of the Nepalese that has seen them through these difficult times. As they undertake the challenge of rebuilding an entire nation, it's this resilience that will be put to the test.
Our correspondents revisiting Kathmandu for France 24. Well, that's all from this week's edition. You can catch it again, though, and all the previous editions as well on our website. That's at france24.com. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.